What is happening, everybody? John Blader 101 here again, and I am back with another video. And today we have some pretty awesome news for those who've been waiting for Nintendo to reveal the next title in the Zelda franchise, which we have the official title for that game for you guys here right now, which is called The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild, which is a pretty appropriate title given the kind of game it is, which we'll get into in a second. So basically, this is going to be a trailer breakdown video, but also if you guys want to check more things out on Zelda Breath of the Wild, the E3 conference or the E3 Treehouse is still going on right now, so if you guys want to check that out, I recommend you do so. They're going into really a lot of depth about the game, so maybe tomorrow or later on today we can get into that gameplay itself, but right here we're just going to dissect and break down the trailer. So I hope you guys enjoy this, and let's check this out.
Open your eyes.
If you didn't catch that, that is actually a spoken line of dialogue, and if you guys don't know anything about Zelda, then Zelda is not very famous for its lines of dialogue. This is actually voice acting, which is kind of awesome because it's nice to see that this game will be one of the first, well, if not the first Zelda game to actually feature a full-fledged voice acting to an extent. So what I've seen so far from the Treehouse is that this actually is the only thing I've seen any other character that's spoken line dialogue. Everything else is still text, but it's still awesome to think that there is still going to be, at some point, some kind of voice acting in the game, which I speculate this voice is. Who is this voice? Well, I actually kind of speculate this to be Zelda herself talking to you, or the goddess, which I'm not sure what. I think Zelda, if you played Skyward Sword, is like the incarnation of the goddess, so pretty much it could be Zelda speaking to you from some location, kind of similar to how she did in A Link into the Past when Hyrule Castle was in trouble. So that's pretty much my 2 cents on this. Let's keep moving on. So another thing that I want to stop here for is that you see that little spire tower thing in the background. Once again, this is actually a pretty important detail because you can actually pretty much go to anything in the background. Remember, Nintendo's saying anything you see in the backdrop will be accessible at some point if you travel long enough. So definitely, what is this spire thing? I got to see what you guys think in the comment section below, but I'm not sure exactly what this thing could be. It may be like a checkpoint, a area to kind of tell you where you are. I'm not sure, but definitely something of interest here. Also, this castle in place is really beautiful. The graphics here are really just incredible, and definitely not too many of a change since we first saw it a couple years ago, but it's still something I thought I would point out. Okay, so definitely another point of interest here. Do you see that giant skeletal figure walking in the background? Some kind of huge beast, which I know in Zelda you do fight skeletons a bunch, and definitely this could be a skeleton with a creature you may find in the world. So definitely another point of interest here. I just wanted to point that out. And also the graphics, once again, beautiful. Okay, so another point of interest here is definitely the wildlife, which is not really something that Zelda's really gone over before. It's really just showing the life of Hyrule, and this new Hyrule definitely has deer, ducks, and some birds, which, well, birds have always been kind of a part of Zelda, but still these animals are a part of the scene here, and I think I just wanted to point out this because it's a pretty cool detail. Okay, this is something you probably wouldn't get from the trailer, but this is something I learned from the Nintendo Treehouse when they were playing the game, that this temple thing we just saw, this church type thing, is actually the Temple of Time, which actually confirms that this is actually in the Young Link timeline, the one with Ocarina of Time, Majora's Mask, and Twilight Princess. This is pretty huge news, and my personal theory is that this takes place sometime at the end of the timeline, and I'll tell you why in a second. So I just wanted to point that out here, and also we get to see that spire structure that I pointed out before in the background, in like the last couple of frames in this scene, which is also another structure, like it's kind of like this wall type area, which I'm not familiar with, and this doesn't follow any other scene in the Temple of Time area. So I'm actually curious to see what this actually is.
Open your eyes.
And another thing I'd like to point out here is this object we see right here that's in the ground that looks pretty old. It's actually one of the Guardian type things we saw from the first Zelda E3 way back. The first time we ever saw footage of this game. And it's one of those things that was chasing Link all that time ago. And actually it makes you kind of wonder from a story perspective, when do these things actually get activated? Do they activate soon, early on in the game, or like way later on? I don't know exactly when, but definitely also another thing I want to point out here is that lightning actually strikes in the background, proving that this game will most likely have some kind of weather effect, or it could be an enemy nearby, who knows. But I think it's actually an enemy weather effect for the game, which I'm pretty hyped for, and I think it's a pretty interesting idea. So let's keep moving on.
Wake up, Link.
Definitely a callback to Legend of Zelda Skyward Sword's sales cloth from the last console Zelda game, and I think that's pretty cool. So it definitely allows you to go across the map a bit faster if you get up on a cliff or a higher elevation, and I think that's pretty cool. Definitely a cool thing. I like how it's been kind of redesigned for a different purpose here, but kind of serves pretty much the same purpose, so you don't die after dropping off large cliffs. So let's keep moving on here. I think there's really nothing too much to talk about other than you get to see more of the map here. Definitely the mountains, and I think some other structures we see here as well, which I guess we'll get into. And I guess we'll get into later on if we really get to see more about this game, which I really want to see what all these structures actually are, because it's just beautiful, and this like adds like a kind of mystery to this trailer, and it gives us more reasons to kind of like try to break stuff down and try to find out what stuff is. This is a pretty interesting aspect of the game that I actually didn't expect, where you actually get to get your own horse. You get your own horse, you take it, and I guess you tame it and you use it to ride around, which I didn't expect. I actually thought you were going to get Epona at some point in the game rather than just getting your own horse at any time you want, which actually I'm actually kind of glad about this change, because it allows you to actually get a horse when you want to, and you can ride around the map that much faster. So I really like this design choice. Good job, Nintendo. This actually adds to my theory of this actually taking place in the Twilight Princess timeline here, is because we see Link and his horse actually riding across what looks like to be the Bridge of Eldin, which I'm not sure exactly if it is, but it definitely looks like it, and I wouldn't be surprised if it's not. So I think that's really what really adds on to more of this, my theory here. That's exactly why I said that, because the Bridge of Eldin, which looks like possibly the Bridge of Eldin, and the Temple of Time, which I went over earlier, which is pretty amazing. I mean, so this also adds to the theory this actually is the last in the timeline, because this might take place right after, or I don't know how long after Twilight Princess actually happened, but definitely looks like this could be the case. Tell me what you guys think. So we see more of this new ability Link has in this game, which is climbing and over structures and mountains and all kinds of stuff like that, even climbing the Temple of Time, which is pretty cool. So I think I like this new feature of Link being able to climb these different structures and even just sides of mountains or whatever, which we actually see in this little section here, which is a huge mountain, which is huge. I'm like really taken back by this. You see how small Link is, and you just spam this huge mountain here, and I think that wonder what's at the top actually. So like I said, all those mountains you may see in the background and some of these other sections I put together, it's really like you can actually go to these. You could probably climb to the top of these, and who knows what kind of items or special things may await for you at the top, which I really think adds to the replay value and even just exploration of this game. It could take hours, even days, just to try to figure out everything and try to find everything in this game. This scene really tipped me off here as actually being a pretty cool one, where you get to cut down trees to try to progress and use the logs. You shoot animals for food. You can burn down parts of the grass, I'm assuming, to help progress or to get certain items or stop enemies. These things you can swim, which I'm assuming because you can hunt animals, you can hunt fish to keep on going. I wonder how far this really like hunting and cooking system will go, whereas if you actually would need to eat every once in a while, your health may progressively go down, which I don't think is actually going to be the case. But probably like as I've seen from the treehouse so far, is that you actually use the meat or seared meat or cooked meat or whatever to actually continue on. You actually get more health, I think, from cooked meat or different ability, like different status things from these different foods, which I think is pretty cool. And I think it really encourages those who are, you know, have the time or willing to wait to actually go around and kill animals and cook them and eat them in different combinations. I wonder what these different combinations may do. So another thing I wanted to point out is some of these items, which is, I believe is one of these ice type item abilities where you freeze the water around you and raise things up, and some kind of magnet type ability where you lift things up in the air and you can drop them on enemies, which I think is pretty cool and definitely would have some creative ways of taking out enemies instead of just, you know, using your sword or your shield and just using it to take them down, which I really love. I really enjoy all the angles you can take to defeat enemies or how to progress in this really huge open world. This is another point of interest here where Hyrule Castle, which I theorize this is Hyrule Castle, which why would it not? This is Hyrule after all, is being swallowed up by some kind of dark force or energy or magic or whatever. And some of you may ask who this might be. Well, actually in the treehouse, which I just watched, or some of the treehouse demo here, Link meets with some kind of ancient statue kind of lady or person that's long dead, and she mentions how she's like one of the forces of the goddess and she is supposed to be stopping the forces of Ganon, which makes me think that maybe Ganon is going to be the villain here in this game, which I not really surprised here, but definitely I want to see what he's going to be up to in this game and what his design will be besides just being like a boar or a pig or whatever. But I just kind of want to see exactly what it would be. So yeah, that's pretty much my 2 cents on this. There's really not too much I can really go on here. This is most like the most story we've seen so far in this trailer, so I just wanted to point that out. This is another part of the game here. We're showing just like the scope and the range of this game, which is frankly just huge. Another part of this game that I didn't really expect, which I learned also in the treehouse, is that Link is actually wearing some different clothes here. If you looked at his boots, or if you look at, he's wearing a knight's outfit as well, which I'm assuming is a knight of Hyrule, I guess, and he's fighting off things. And also, even part of the map actually comes part to life and actually tries to fight you. I'm assuming you get to fight that as well. Whether that be a boss or a mini boss, that's up for speculation, but still, it's something I'm really caught my eye here. But I really want to talk about this customization of your character. So I'm assuming it's going to have some RPG elements here where you can change parts of your character to have more damage. I mean, to, you know, take more damage, like with your sword and stuff like that, which we confirmed to be part of the treehouse. But it's also just a part of this game too, so I'm assuming the knight's armor is something you probably get later on in the game. I guess you're not going to see Link in his traditional green garb yet. I'm assuming that's going to be more at the end of the game, and I'll get to that in a second. But also, we actually get to see the first game's entrance to, I'm assuming, a dungeon, or in this game, it's like some kind of shrine or something like that. I think that's what they said at the treehouse, but it's still like some kind of type dungeon area, which really intrigues me, and I guess is going to be like the main points of interest in the game, because, you know, if you've ever played the original Legend of Zelda, is that they have these different openings to these dungeons that are pretty distinct. So I'm assuming that a lot of the dungeon or the shrine entrances will look something like this one we see right here, which is actually near that same place where we open, I think is where we use the that ice type using the item. I'm not sure exactly if that's the exact place, but it does look like it's in the same like area. But anyways, let's keep going. So obviously the biggest WTF moment of this episode is obviously seeing the Master Sword, and it is rusted and kind of bits are missing, and definitely looks really run down. Like, how does the Master Sword itself get to this state? And that's one of the things I guess you have to figure out in the game. But it's also like me and my brother like, whoa, what in the world? What just happened? This is ridiculous. And how can the Master Sword be like that? Well, this actually adds to my theories of this being a rundown, end of the timeline, Twilight Princess, like Ocarina of Time timeline Zelda game, which obviously seems like the magic of this world has ran out. Because one thing I've noticed even in the E3 treehouse demonstration is that there is no heart plants or anything growing out of the ground when you cut leaves and grass and stuff like that. There isn't any like hearts jumping out of there. The magic of this land is gone. Like, it's only monsters and stuff left, which makes me wonder, did Ganon finally win? Did he have his triumph? I don't know. But definitely the magic is gone. Even the Master Sword seems to be affected by this, and this is really like, whoa, this is some serious Hyrule is in some serious danger if the Master Sword is not going to be pretty important in the story, which I think it is going to be super important. But what kind of makes me add to one of the things that Mr. Onuma said, where he said that he's going to break the ideas of like the conventional ideas of a Zelda game, which one of the things I think would be pretty cool is if you were to find the Master Sword pretty early on in the plot, maybe not like the first like 10 minutes, but some really early on in the plot, and see how like maybe this Zelda or whoever's leading you, this voice leads you to the Master Sword, and she's surprised at how it's cracked and it's all run down like this, and you need to find a way to restore it to its former glory. And that could be like a thing you carry on. It could be like a really bad weapon at the beginning of the game, but still be something you want to use later on, which I think is really can't wait to get my hands on this game. So I think this game is coming out in 2017, but that's going to be a long wait. And definitely I really want to see what happened to the Master Sword and what happened to Hyrule, just all of it, and to see what happening with all of our characters, because even at the E3 today, all the characters and the story has been left out mostly for you just to kind of speculate on. It's really just showing off the map right now, and we only have but so little to go off of. So I'm really happy at what I got to see so far. And yeah, tell me what you guys thought of this trailer down below, and if you thought this breakdown was pretty cool, give me a like and even a sub. It really goes a long way. It really shows me that you like the work I do. Alright then, this is John Blade 101 everybody, and I bid you a good day. Have a good one.